Alright guys, so in this episode we are going to be building the header section and the footer section of this hotel website. So since this header section is going to be interactive, we'll be using React in order for us to add client-side interactivity. So I will go to the docs and I'll go to integrations, and for the UI frameworks just select React, and this is the command to install it, but we won't be using this command because this is using the latest version of React, which is React 19, but we'll be using React 18. I tried using React 19 when I was initially building the project, but I ran into some compatibility issues. So in order for us to follow along very well, we'll be sticking to React 18. So we're using the manual method of installing it. So the first thing we'll do first is to install this command right here. So I'll click on copy and I'll go to VS Code. Then I'll put my terminal and go to a new terminal and paste in that command and hit enter. Alright, that has been installed. Say CLS, and I'll go back and copy this command as well. But we'll copy it for now and then I'll paste it and I'll make some edits. So this will be, let me go to the first part. So we say at, sorry, at 18, do the same here as well. So we say at 18, then for the types we also add at 18 as well, and at 18 as well. So I'll hit enter now. Alright, that has been installed. Then we say CLS, and I think that's all. So what we have to do is to integrate it to our astro.config file. So I'll copy this right here and search for astro config. I'll paste it like so and copy his entire integrations here as well. So do that. Let's just do that here, and I will scooch this to the bottom like so. So with this now, can I use React on our Astro project? So I will go back to the application and I will scooch this down like so, and I'll also do the same thing here as well. Alright, so we'll go back, and inside my components folder I'll create a new file called header.tsx. I'll say arrow afce, and this will quickly give me a React code snippet, so I can go to my extensions, and if you see I already typed this down and it says ex7 React Redux. So in case you want to follow along, you should have this extension installed. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is to change this div to use the semantic HTML tag, and for now we'll give this a class name and give it a class of fixed. Top will be 0, give it a z index of 500, and give this a width of 4. Then we'll get rid of this text and we'll bring in this container class. And for this container class, you would see that we don't have this margin inline set to auto like so on this tailwind version 4. So initially on the version 3 we would set that as well. So we say, I think it was text center, I've forgotten what the syntax was, but in this case we just have to go to our global.css and let's do it, let's just do it before this. So bring in the container class, this container class, I will say the margin now, say margin inline should be auto. And for it to make sense, let me just comment it out first so that you see the difference of what I mean. So I will go back like so, and let me give this a class of flex. Items should be center, then justify content be between. Then let me just add some demo content first, and let me add another one here. So say p tag and some text. All right, so it's not coming in. So in order for us to bring it in, we need to go to our layout.astro file and make sure it's always on top of our application. So we say header and we'll import it. I'll save. And if we check now, it should be showing. I will also need to go to our index file and let's just get rid of this now. We don't need it for now. You can see that the texts are leaning to the edge of the browser, so there's no space. We'll fix that in a minute. Then if I close this out, you will see that this is not being properly aligned, as you can see, like so. So it's having the max width of, is that, so it's having the max width of 36 frame, but it's not being centered. So the way to go around that is to come to the globals of CSS, and if I uncomment this now and save, you'll see that everything is now properly centered. And if I bring back my dev tools, I can come back here and say padding inline. So for the left and right, to give it class of 1 rem. And for that, we also need to get rid of the padding when we get to bigger screens, because we don't want that padding up, because we don't want the padding on bigger screens. So I can say at media and say main width. So we just say 75 rem, which I think is 1400 pixels. So it's actually 1440 pixels. So we say container, I will set the padding inline, set it back to 0. So if we go back now, the padding now is gone. All right, so we can now go back to our header, and let's also give this a py of 5 for the padding top and bottom, and this will hold the logo. So we can say logo, and this won't go anywhere. It just take us back to the home page, and this says what? Let's see the text as it says. So I'll copy it, I'll paste it here. Then if you notice, the first word has the primary color. So copy this and I'll put it inside the span tag. So say span, and for the class name here, we give it a text of 200, font of 800. I'll give it a zip index of 10, and for the span tag, we'll give this a class of text primary, and we'll also set this to inline block as well, so that we can add margin to it as well. All right, cool. So the next thing we want to add are these right here. So this is coming from Clark, but in the meantime, we'll just put it inside a button. So I will first of all make sure I'm here and say nav bar, and I'll quickly create a navbar component. So I'll just pass it here. Then now components folder, I'll say navbar.csx, I'll say refc again, and now I can import it. If I check now, you would see the navbar here, but we don't want this navbar to show on mobile. We only want it to show when we open this. So I'll go back to the navbar, and for now I will just say this should be hidden, and underneath this navbar we'll create another div. So this div will hold the button that says log in, so we'll leave it like so, won't style it. Then under this button we'll have the mode toggle as well. Later on, we are going to add the dashboard. So this will be the dashboard when the user is logging, but again, we'll just leave it as it is for now. Then for this modal toggle, which is this, we'll be getting it from ChatCN. So I'll go to ChatCN and I'll go to docs and go to dark mode. Then I'll select Astro. And the first thing is to create this inline theme script. So I'll copy this script right here and go to our layout, to Astro file, and before this HTML tag, I'll paste it like so. Then the other thing we have to do is to create this file inside our components folder. So copy this file like so, and I'll go to components and paste that in. Now copy this code and paste it here. So we'll be making some customization to this, but for now we'll leave it as it is. Then we'll need to install this button component and drop down menu component from ChatCN. So to do that, you just have to go to components and search for button. So this one right here, and click this command or copy this command, open your terminal and paste that right in. So it's checking the registry and it's going to install the button once we are done. All right, the button has been installed and you can see a new folder, a new UI folder was created for us. So I can quickly go to the buttons and I can customize these buttons to my own preference. All right, well, close it for now. I also need to install the drop down as well. So say drop down menu. And again, I just did this separately, but you can add more components if you have. So I can install the avatar and the rest. So you can install more than one component at a time. So I'll click enter now. All right, so it has been installed. So I can now save this file. And before we move on, sorry to digress a bit, if I go to the package or JSON file, just so that you can follow along very well, the version of React that we're using is 18.3.1. So the same thing for the React DOM, and for the types, see it's similar as well. So just take note of that in case if you are running into any dependency issues. So let me close this out. And if we go back to the docs, so we say dark mode, Astro again. So in order for us to display the mode toggle, we can just import it anywhere. So in our case, we need it side by side this login. So what we'll do is to go to our header TSS file and I will import it right here. So say mode toggle, and again you can see they added this client property right here, because by default, remember, Astro is server side first. But in our case, since this mode toggle is a React file that is inside the header.css, we'll leave it like this and we'll go to our layout and just say client, and the properties are idle, load, media, only visible. So I would suggest you just use load, but you can as well go through the one that works for you. All right, so if we check back now, okay, if we click on this, nothing is working because we are getting some errors. So function components cannot be given refs. Okay, so this is coming from the button. So say button. All right, so for some reason, maybe it's a little bug from the button component, but this is how it is on the final build file. So I don't know why it was different here, but we can just pause the video and just type this all out. So I think we are, like it says, the error says that the function components cannot be given rest. So I think I was trying to use the variant props directly from the button function. Well, let's save this now and check if that solves the issue. All right, so we're not getting that error. Well, if we click on this, okay, it's working now. So we can toggle between light mode, dark mode, and system. So we need to start this mode toggle because as you can see, it's quite different from the final build. And before we start this, I'll go back to the header.txs file and give this some class. So say flex should be items center. Then we say justify start. Alright, so we can go back to the mode toggle. So if I hold Ctrl and click into this, you notice that I get directed to this drop down components or drop down menu file where we can either customize the style directly from here or we can just override the styles from here. So we'll just do everything from here. So I'll say class name and I'll set this to translate y1 and on media screens and up, so we'll say translate y0. Then for the button, we'll change this from outline to secondary. And let's also change the size to small. So if I save now, you can see that the background changed and is now smaller. And again, we can come to the button and add some styles. So we can say, can give this a margin right of 4, a height of 8. On hover, the background should be the primary color, and on focus, we want to get rid of the outline. So we say outline should be none. Alright, so if we check now, on hover, you can see we are getting this background color. Then for the drop down, so if we click on this, we want to still give the same behavior to the drop down. So we can say for the content, we'll give this a class name and we'll push it down a bit. So say margin top of like 5. Then for the item, we'll say cursor should be pointer. Then on focus, we want the background to be the primary color. So I will just copy this and paste it 2 more times for this one and this one as well. So if we save now and click on this, you can see that we're having this nice color coming in like so. All right, cool. So the next thing is to add this menu button right here. So go back to our header.tsx and say menu buttons, and inside this we'll create a div and we'll give this a class of inline block. In a large screen, it should be hidden, so we don't want to see it on large screens and all. So I will add the bars icon. So I think that's the first one. So that is called align left. And if you install ShartCN, ShartCN comes with the Lucid React icon, which is really nice. So I can give this a name and I can call this open menu. Then this would be a cursor of pointer. Then the size we just give it 26. And for the class name we say translate y1 and medium screens and up we say translate y0. All right, so let's check if that's coming in. Okay, so instead of adding a margin right of 4 as well, and what I would do is to come back to the mode toggle and get rid of this margin right of 4. Then I'll go to this and just say gap should be 4. So all right, so I believe this is much better. Right, so basically we want to create a state so that we can toggle between this bars icon and the X icon. So to do that, I'll quickly create a state to store that. So say I'll call this is clicked and set is clicked. I'll set this to use state and this should be false. I'll create a function that says toggle nav click. This will be an arrow function, and basically we just set is clicked and just negate the value. So say is clicked. So essentially if it's not clicked and toggle on it, then just switch this back from false to true and from true to false. All right, so to use that, we'll come to, let's just do that right here. So now we say on click, and we'll pass in the toggle nav click, and right here we can say using curly braces. We say if it's clicked, we want to show or do something. Then if it's not clicked, we also want to do something. So in this case, we want to show the aligned left if it's not clicked or once it's closed. Then if it's opened, we'll set this to the X from the seed, and similar to this, we just copy all the stars here and paste it here. For this, we just call this one close menu. I'll save. So let's check now. So if we click on this, you can see it's toggling between the close icon and the open icon. All right, so guess that's for that. Then we want to create this navigation for mobile. So to do that, we'll come to our nav component, and just before the function, this function will say const navigation, and this should be an array. So essentially we just want to store our navigation so that we can reuse it for both the mobile and desktop. So this will be an array of objects, and this will be name. I'll set this to home, then the href will be / then I'll copy this like 3 more times. This will be for rooms, this will go to the rooms page. This will be for about, and there's no about page, so we'll just say hash / about, so it's not going to take us anywhere. And same thing with the contact as well. So it should be hash contact. Now we can come right here and we'll get rid of this and use code fragments. And inside this, we'll pass in the mobile navigation. I'll also say desktop navigation. So inside this mobile navigation, we'll use the nav tag, and this we have a class name of fixed. Top will be 0, left will be 0 as well. Give it a display of flex. The height will be 100 VH. The width will be 4. Items will be center. Justify. Set it to start. Then we'll add some transition. Set it to all. Duration will be 500. Then on large screens, we will set it to hidden. Then inside the nav tag, we'll bring in the UL tag and also give it a class name of border muted. Background should be the background. Height will be full. Then width will be 70% so that we don't open it to the extreme end. Then we'll give it a border right. While for the padding top, we'll set it to 9 rem. So I'll just use an arbitrary number. Alright, that's fine. Then inside this UL tag, we'll map through the navigation array and say for each item we'll say we're passing the list, we're passing the li tag, and the key will be item dot name because names are unique, but you can use an id here if you choose to. And for the class name, set it to text of 200, font of 500, MB of 4, and we'll set it to capitalize. And inside this li tag, we'll bring in the link tag, and this will just be the item.href. Then for the name, it will just be item.name. Then for the class name, we'll say class name, and we'll say on hover the text should be primary, then add the transition of colors, duration of 300. So if we preview now, this is what it's showing, and I think we need to add some padding as well. So go back to the UL and I'll say padding left of like 4. So if we check now, should be some spacing right here. All right, but we need it to be closed by default, and we need these two states to simultaneously work together. So we'll come to our headers and I will pass in the is clicked state like so. So we say is clicked, and also pass in the toggle nav click. All right, so we need to accept the types on our nav bar. So I can say interface nav bar props. I'll say is clicked as a boolean. Then for the toggle nav click, this should be void. All right, so we need to pass it to our nav tag. So we'll come right here and say is clicked and toggle nav click, and this will be from the nav props. And for this, we'll change this to curly braces and use backticks because we want to add some variables to this. So we use the dollar sign. So say if it's clicked, we want the translate x to be 0. Then else we will say the translate x to be an arbitrary number. So set it to 190.25 rem. So let's save. So if we check back now, this should be hidden by default. So once we click on this, okay, this is coming from the wrong angle. So I think here should be negative. So say negative x so that it should come from the left side. All right, so if we click on this now, you can see now it's coming through. But if you notice, so if I come to the final build, you see that the home is active while house is not active. And again, this background color it's not as the same as this. So let's cross check our charts here and teams again. So this is the correct one. I will copy the code. So yeah, so let's copy the root again, and now globals or CSS. Yeah, this should be it. So let's save it again. So if we still get the same thing, I guess we'll just leave it as it is. Yeah, so we'll just leave it like so. My best my best guess is that the background color was updated. So in order for us to make ours active, this current page that we are active, we can go to our nav bar and we'll create a new state, and I'll call that active and set active, and this will be use state, and this will be an empty string. So what we want to do is that we want to store the current path name or the current location in this set active state so that we can grab it anytime we want. I want that to happen whenever a page reloads, which means we need a side effect. So to use the side effect, we use the use effect hook, and this will take an arrow function with an empty array like so, and we'll just set the active function and say window the location the path name. So whatever that particular path name is, we will store it on this set active function so that we can grab it using the active state. Then again, once we click on that particular page, we want this sidebar to close as well. So in order to do that, we'll create another function called handle nav click. So say they should take in an href type of string, and we'll set the active to the href, and we'll just call the toggle nav click function, and this should be an arrow like so right here. All right, so to use that, we need to go to the link tag, and for the class name, we'll just still do the same thing here. So we'll use curly braces, and we can save the active state is equals to the item.href. Then we want the text to be primary, else we'll just leave it as an empty string. And on click, we want to also pass in the href that was being clicked on. So we say handle nav click, and we set the item to the whatever the href is. All right, so if we check now and click on this, I see that the home is now active. Then let's also increase the font a little bit, the font weight. So I don't know why 500 is kind of light, so let's try 600. Okay, I think this is too bold, so we'll leave it at 500. So say 500. Then for the desktop nav bar, so close this out. We can set this to the same. So go back to our code, and we'll say nav as well, and this we have a class name of hidden, so it's going to be hidden by default. Then on large, set this to inline block. Then inside the nav bar, we'll bring in the UL. This we have a class of flex, so on media devices and up. Then the same thing, we had a gap of like 6, and we just capitalize it as well. Then inside this, we need to map over our navigation. So I will just hit tab to accept this because it's quite similar to what we have here as well. So the only thing we'll be changing is, first of all, we'll be changing the handle nav click to set active, so that we just pass in the href to the active state directly. Then for the styling, we'll just get rid of this over and we'll set this to BG primary, also border radius, and for the padding X we set it to 2, py we set it to 1, text will be white. So let's save and see. All right, but the text looks big, so what we'll do is that we'll reduce this to 100. So let's check now. Yeah, I think it's much better. All right, cool. I believe that's all for the header section for now. Later when we add the hero section, we'll add this scrolling effects on the header section, but we'll leave it like so for now. Then for the footer section, what we just have to do is to go back to our code, and again I will just bring this down like so. Then inside this component I'll call this footer.astro. So there's literally no client-side stuff here, so we'll just use the .astro extension. Then what we'll just do is to use the footer tag, and I'll give this a class of BG secondary, set to relative, add a margin top of 20, PT of 20, PT of 20, and a padding bottom of 8. Then inside the footer, we bring in the container class. Then inside of that, we also bring in a new div. I'll give this a class. I'll say on medium device it should be grid. Then on medium device we say grid equals 2. Then on medium device we set the gap to 4. On large screen we'll set MB to 12. Then on large screen again we'll set the grid equals to 3. And inside this div we'll create another div as well. Then we'll give this a class of MB8, and on medium devices and up we'll set the margin bottom to 0. Then inside it we'll add an h3. I'll give this a class of text 300, fonts 500, MB4, and set this to capitalize. Then for the text we say stay light hotel, and let's save. So if we check now, nothing should still appear because we need to go to our layout Astro file and pass it right here. So we import it, and this is not showing up, so we just have to do that manually by ourselves. So we say footer.astro, then this should be footer. Alright, so if we save now, we should see it underneath right now. Alright, so it's coming through. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to add this text like so. So copy it, and I'll go to our footer to Astro. Underneath, say P, and give this a class of MB4, and I'll paste in the text. And lastly, use a link tag right here like so, and this will take us to the home. I'll also give this a class, and for the class we just set it to over primary color. Then we'll add some transitions and set the colors. Duration should be 300, and set it to ease in. out. Then for the text, we set it to get started. All right, so if we check now, so nothing is showing, and I guess I use the Shatien button right here. So I will just quickly change this to use the button from Shatien. So say button, let's quickly import the button component. So this should be like so, and we say get started. Let's just give this a class name of font 600. All right, so if we check now, hopefully the button should show. All right, so the right color is not coming for this, and as you can see, the color is quite different. So what I'll do is I'll open the current build folder, the final product on Sublime Text, and I will just copy. Let me search for that. So I'll copy the root variable and this tag variable, and I will paste it like so, or replace it with as. So we save. We should get a better contrast color. So again, let me just open this down so that you can quickly take a snapshot of the colors that are used here. So same thing here as well. All right. So for this button, we can just click on the button, or we rather click on the button, and if we're using the default, I will set the text to be foreground. I think if it's foreground, it should be white now. All right, so this is much better. Then we also want to set the cursor to pointer. So if we check as well, this should change from arrow to pointer. The reason I'm doing this directly on the buttons file is that I want all my buttons to act this way. But if I don't want all the buttons to act this way, I will just do it directly from the class name. All right, so for the, let me just open this like so. So for this quick menu, what we just have to do is make sure that we close this. So I can call this one row 1. Then yeah, I will say row 2. And I need to create another div tag and I'll give this a class of margin bottom of 8, medium devices and up. Margin bottom should be 0 on medium devices and up. Set the justify to be self end. Then on large devices, we set the translate to be 3rem. Then inside this div, we bring in the heading, which is the history that says quick menu. And for the class, give it a text of 300, font of 500, MB of 4, and set it to capitalize. Then underneath it, we'll have some couple of LIs. So create one, and I'll give this a class of MB2 and set the list style to none. Then inside the LI, we'll have an A tag that will take us to the rooms page. And for the class, we just give it a hover state of the primary color, transitions, the colors. Then for the duration, we set it to 300 and say is in out. So we save, and for the text itself, we say rooms and suites. Then let's check how many is here. So copy it 2 more times. So I'll copy this 2 more times. 0, 1, 2, and we just get rid of this margin bottom here. And for this one, we set this to contact. It should go to the home page. And for this, we just set this to restaurants. So set this to restaurants. Should be capital letter R. Alright, so if we check now, alright, that's coming through. So the next thing is to create these other links, and it's really similar to this one. So what we just do is to copy this entire thing, and we just call it another comment and 03. Under this, we set the translate x to sysrem. Then this should be other links, and this should go to the about, and it says about us. This should be gallery. This should be gallery, and this should be policies. Anything applies here. So let's save and see if our changes is coming in, and this is taken to the ending. So I think this should be center, not justify self end. So this should be center. All right, then the last thing is to put this copyright. So I will just copy it like so, and underneath everything, so before this closing div, I'll just create a new div, and I'll give this a class, call this pt12, text should be center, and inside it we'll create p tag and passing what we've just copied. But we want these dates to be dynamic, so to do that, bring in these curly braces and say new date. This is a method, then we append the get full year method to it as well. So if we save now, 2025 should pop up. So when we get to new year, this should automatically update. All right, cool. So let's check this back, and again, let's quickly fix this. This should be closed. So go to the header and just do it like so. All right, guys. So, and if we check on mobile, everything is responsive. So let's close this out. All right, guys. So that's it for this episode. In the next episode, we'll be building more sections of this hotel website.